Good evening, everyone. Welcome to episode 3 of the Kickoff Show podcast for Section 9 football. Once again, I'm with Estrada, Isaac Cayetano, or as we like to call him now, Dad. First off, congratulations on the new baby.
Thank you.
Give us some information.
Thank you. I mean, it was fun. Last week after practice, maybe Wednesday night, 11 o'clock, we decided to go in, see what's going on. To be honest with you, I thought we were coming right back home. we thought the baby were coming early weeks ago. He didn't. We get in Wednesday night. They lock us in. Thursday around 6:46, he pops out. I couldn't believe he did it to me. Made me miss 2 days of practice in the game. But I'll take it. It's fun. It's been fun. He's the quietest baby in the world.
He did it again.
I did it again.
You just tabooed yourself.
We're not going to talk about it anymore. I'm having a great time. He's a beautiful kid, and I can't wait to raise him.
God bless.
All right. Well, we did our picks last week, and wow, what a week!
Hey, we knew. We gave the warning shot when we made those picks last week that this was going to be the week that things could go either way.
You know what? I didn't think last week was the week that things could have went either way.
No,
I'm thinking this is the week that things could have gone either way.
I thought it can go. I didn't know it would be a 2-3 week. Now I didn't know. I picked. We picked 5 games on here. I picked every game of the season. Man, my overall record, I went from 15-4 to about 20-7 right now. It was just a lot of games which always seems to happen. I was joking with my girlfriend who was in the hospital. I said, for some reason, whenever I can't make a game, right, because it kills me. Friday night, I'm in Newberg, 5 minutes away. Minisink has the lead. I'm itching to walk down there. But upsets always happen. If I can't make the game, something crazy always happens. And indeed, last week was the same thing. Something crazy happened a few times.
Yeah, we had a nice close one over in Goshen at the Coliseum, watching the Tigers and the Gladiators that went down to the last couple minutes. And while we were there, we were getting some of these scores from the other locations. And needless to say, there was a lot of surprises going on. Some good surprises. It's going to be interesting moving forward. Obviously, there's going to be some changes in what we expected moving forward, especially in that AA realm. But we'll get to that discussion as we move on tonight.
Yeah, let's start off with AA last week. Newberg and Minisink. Minisink had them on their heels.
Yeah, it was 14-0, right? I believe.
Minisink had them on their heels. I mean, Newberg put up, I believe it was 19 second half unanswered points.
First drive of the game, they went down. Minisink's definitely underrated. And I'll be the first to say I thought the guys was going to take a step back, but they had a few more pieces than I remembered that didn't graduate. I falsely thought a few guys graduated that didn't go anywhere. They got a good quarterback coming back in his junior year, Robbie Librera. The running back's running hard. It's as if, the last hard running back I remember there, again, Ethan Gallo. It's like he never left. The big offensive line, just like we talked about. So they didn't really – they surprised me at the way that they brought it to Newberg. Obviously, 19 unanswered points in the second half. But I mean, I know a lot of good teams that would have done worse. That was really impressive the way they started that game. Newberg made a lot of adjustments in the second half and came out on top. But I think Minisink battling with Newberg the way they did, and then getting the call that Cornwall lost to Monroe the way they did. I think Minisink is feeling real good about themselves right now.
I think I come away a little bit differently, and kudos to the Warriors, but. There was still a lot of questions coming in on Newberg, especially with the quarterback change. And I think we're starting to get some of the answers there. And coach has got to be happy. Barnwell was 10 of 13 for 206 yards, 4 touchdowns on the evening. And he kind of spread out those tosses too, because he had contributions from Jaden Hines. He had 4 catches for 64 yards and a couple of touchdowns. Davis, 4 catches, 114 yards with a touchdown. Leggett had a catch of 28 yards, which was for a touchdown, also recovered a fumble. And then that Newberg defense, which played well against Arlington in week 0, turns around, and after falling behind 14-0,
Right.
they decided to take over and did a nice job keeping Minisink Valley at bay the rest of the evening. And they come away with a big win on the road as they come in to face Cornwall at home this coming week. And, they're going to go into that Cornwall game 2-0. Minisink, I think, going to be happy, but Newberg, I think, came out of it getting a little bit more of an identity. We weren't sure what the ID was going to be for Newberg, and you're starting to see it here going into week 2 now.
Do you have any rushing stats for Minisink?
I don't have any rushing stats for Minisink.
One of the comments was, you can't ignore the ground.
Yeah, no, I don't have statistics, but that was the game that I watched sitting in the hospital. And I mean, just like you said, I can't tell you the ground numbers, but I can tell you that the ground and pound was working. I mean, you know what I mean? The guards are making contact with the linebackers. You don't see Newberg get moved around. You don't see first down runs. You don't see 10-yard runs versus Newberg. They swarm the ball. They swarm the football. Minisink in the first half, they got to the places that they were trying to get. They ran the ball very effectively. They weren't marching down the field, putting the ball in the air. So I don't have specific statistics, but it was an impressive game on the ground for Minisink by far.
Yeah, there aren't any stats on Max Preps right now from that ball game.
All right,
but we'll try to get
Newberg keeping them quiet again.
What happened?
Newberg keeping them quiet again. All right, next one up, Monroe, Cornwall.
Yeah, so Monroe, Cornwall. What do we say every week regarding Monroe?
What do we say every week? Under 21.
More than 21 points in that game, both offensively or defensively. It's a will, but give the Crusaders. This was a patented Monroe-Woodbury style of game. Everything on the ground. Defensively, they really took it to Cornwall. But I think, Nate Colangis, 17 carries for 106 yards, 2 touchdowns for them. Both touchdowns from about 6 yards out. He had a couple of catches for 12 yards. Ethan McDaniel was 12 of 17 for 114 yards. But defensively, they had a blocked extra point. They had a fumble recovery. They had an interception. So a true Monroe-Woodbury Crusaders style of game. And so you're not surprised when that happens. You're not surprised by an 18-9 score, and you're not surprised that the Crusaders come out on top with it. Given the fact, by the way, Isaac, I'm sorry, given the fact that you're talking about a Cornwall team that offensively, historically, and even in the first week this year against Burnt Hills, really does a nice job on the offensive side of the football. So kudos to Monroe-Woodbury.
Right. They've been super explosive on offense. I was really shocked to see, obviously, we talk about the block, extra point, and this, that, and third. I was really shocked to see 9 points. That's what I wanted to see when it came down to Monroe-Woodbury. We talked about 21. That's the magic number in Monroe-Woodbury. Can you hold that Cornwall offense to 21 points? I believe, I could be mistaken, but the last time Cornwall scored less than 10 points was a 7-6 loss against Port Jervis in the COVID season, 2021, over at Delaware Valley High School. Since then, I mean, and before that, I couldn't tell you when. So it's been at least 3 years since the team has held Cornwall to less than 10 points, which speaks. It's a true testament to Monroe-Woodbury's defense.
All right. Who we got? Ed's favorite, Warwick and Middletown.
Well, listen, the Midi Bears are a little bit on rough times right now without JoJo White as the quarterback. But I think more probably Coach Strenfeld is going to tell you that the part that he's more concerned about right now is the secondary at Middletown. They gave up a lot of points in the air to Warwick. Listen, we've talked about the Wildcat offense. It's always been strong. It's always been fast. Right. They've always put up a lot of points. That the case this week as well. Brody Frederick, their senior quarterback. Get a load of this. So he was 8 of 11 for 300 yards, right? 8 completions, 4 touchdowns on 8 completions. Ryan Sullivan, 5 catches, 198 yards, had 2 touchdowns. Dylan Sullivan with 2 catches, 91 yards, 2 touchdowns. I believe at least 3 of the touchdowns were over 60 yards, one of them over 70. So obviously, I know JoJo, who's out at Middletown this past week. Not sure what his status is moving forward, but he was also the safety on the team. So in addition to being the quarterback, he was a safety as a freshman. And they're young back there. And Coach Strenfeld told me that during their first week game with Baldwinsville, that that was going to be a little bit of an experiment. So they need to figure it out quick, because coming up the pike this week is the Erie Bell game against Port Jervis. We all know that Port Jervis returns a lot of experienced starters on offense. And so it's going to be a challenge for the Mini Bears. Now, listen, Erie Bell games, Port Jervis could be 0-10, and Middletown could be 10-0, and that game is going to be close. Middletown could be 0-10, Port Jervis could be 10-0, and that game's always going to be close, just like the Spirit game between Goshen and Warwick. So I don't expect it not to be close in Middletown on Saturday afternoon. But there's a lot of concern, obviously, for the Mini Bears on defense. We'll see how they perform this weekend against Port Jervis.
Right.
And by the way, when you're down early by a large amount, guess what that does to the Middletown offense? It takes Jelani Graham out of the equation, and that's who they rely on offensively on the ground. Again, he can run with the best of them, but the game's got to be within reason for them to be able to utilize him and his strengths.
We talked about it before we got on air, me and Ed. I'm curious to see what that win means for Warwick. Warwick looked really good. Those statistics, that was more of what I call do whatever you want kind of game. They did whatever they want in that game on Friday. So I'm curious to see where Warwick goes after this, because if you remember last week, we put Warwick right with Warkill, and that we fed the fire and we told them that you get to the door. Can you get through the door? And then they come through the door and they beat the defending AA champs, which says a lot. I know Middletown. I know they're missing JoJo. I know this, but they beat them pretty handily. So I'm curious to see where Warwick heads after this.
Yeah, it's going to be it kind of opens up, when you think about it, it opens a nice pathway for Warwick in that class.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. A crazy thought here, right? I never thought, we talked about the Class A championship, and we said Cornwall, landslide. Sitting here right now at this very moment, Warwick Minisink does not sound crazy. That does not sound crazy.
And we'll see what happens. But hey, listen, they pitched pretty much a shutout. They gave up a touchdown in the fourth quarter against Middletown. But we talked about the fact that Warwick in the past, offense has never been a problem for the Wildcats. It's been on the defensive side of the football.
Right.
A shutout against the Middletown team that really is still strong. A running game, though, their passing game without JoJo, a little bit up in the air right now. But you still had to pitch the shutout against last year's Section 9 AA champion. Pretty much a shutout.
Yeah.
All right. Did we hit the Goshen Kingston game?
Nope, not yet.
Right.
I'll let you guys run with that one.
Ed?
Yeah, you know what? I mean, score-wise, it was a good game. Football-wise, not very impressed. It was kind of a sloppy game. A lot of penalties and again, early in the season, but both teams I think got a lot of work to do.
Yeah, a lot of penalties early on, a lot of turnovers early on. But I tell you what, I did come away impressed with. Goshen showed a lot of grit.
Okay.
They were down early in the game, and after you're down early in a game, after getting shellacked the week before by Port Jervis 61-28, and still head coach John Sullivan keeping that team focused and their eye on just one drive at a time, and they were able to maintain that. They had a 14-7 lead, and then a really unusual play. So, folks, if some of the athletes are out there watching,
this had all of us stymied. What was going on?
40 seconds of that Goshen Kingston game, because it was 14-7 Goshen. Kingston's driving the football. They're deep in Goshen territory. They run up to the football with time winding down. I think it was about 35 seconds left. And and Jack Purvis, the quarterback, goes back to spike the football. And as soon as he threw it to the ground, the rest of us, I'm looking up saying, okay, clock stopped. All of a sudden we see a Goshen defender running the football back with no call from the official until he gets into the end zone for a touchdown. And apparently what had happened was he took a step back. Instead of spiking the football off of the hike, he took a step back, a step or two actually, and then spiked it down there. It's pretty much, I'm assuming, called a fumble at the Isaac. You probably know better than I do at this point. So it's called a fumble. Goshen returns it, and instead of Kingston going in for a tie game at the half, Goshen runs it back, and it's all of a sudden 21-7. Now the Tigers did a nice job in the third quarter on their 2 drives coming back in that ball game. But when that happens, it's an up in air game, and all of a sudden in the fourth quarter, late in the fourth quarter, Goshen just wanted to give itself a shot, and they got one. Mark McKenna down the sideline to Gene Lewis all the way down to the 3-yard line, and then the Gladiators did the old Eagle bum rush at the line of scrimmage for 2 straight plays to bring in Jake Giordano for the touchdown and the win. And the Gladiators go from a 61-28 loss to Port Jervis the week before to what some might call an upset over Kingston, a Class AA team.
Just give me 1 second. I know we have the clip of the catch, but I want to see if I'm able to play it here. So let's see what.
3rd down and 16 for Goshen. Back to pass. McKenna looking downfield. Lewis with a catch. Lewis at the 10. Lewis inside the 5. What?
There you have it.
Cool. Thanks.
And no, that was cool. That was a great call. And Gene Lewis is a talented player. He made some plays even against Port Jervis the week before. He's a player that I could definitely see Goshen, right? Obviously, they're spreading it out. They got them at quarterback. Anybody who remembers Goshen maybe 2-3 years ago, they weren't in the spread. They were more so 2-3 backs in the backfield. But they found the athletes, and they're spreading it out. The June Lewis is a good guy. He's going to make a few more of those plays this season.
Yeah, and I like McKenna, got to wipe away some of the little mistakes, but other than that, he's got long strike capability. You just saw it there. That was a perfect pass on the outstretched arms of Gene Lewis. And listen, they put up 28 points against Port Jervis, who's got a pretty good defense, and they put up now 27 points against Kingston, who's a class above them. So from an offensive standpoint, the Gladiators got it going. They just got to, tighten it up on defense, and then who knows?
Which is always the case.
All right, Burke and O'Neill.
Well, Burke went.
I think we all got this one.
Burke. I mean, they resumed as if they never left. 26-0 shutout. Burke last season, something crazy statistic like 5 straight shutouts. They always have a defensive team. They got a team full of bruisers. They're going to run the football right at you. And you're either going to get out the way or you're going to get hurt. It's just one of those two. I like it. 26-0 over O'Neill, an old rival when they were playing up in Class C. For Burke, obviously, like we always say, we know those are the Class D champions. Congratulations, you'll be in the state playoffs. So it's right. It's really every week is about polishing and make sure you're obviously, you can't underestimate anybody and polishing and getting ready for that first round, which is a very fortunate thing. It really is. You already won the Class D championship, but every game still counts. You don't want to go 0-10 playing in the first round of state. So they get an opportunity to perfect their craft for 10 weeks of the season.
And I think this is the year that O'Neill lost Arbogast, right?
Yes, it is.
He was a player of the year, was he not? State player of the year in the class?
New York State record, you know what I mean?
Yep.
All-time receiving yards.
You lose that talent in that classification, that's hard to bring back, And he not only was a very talented individual, he was a fast individual. I had the honor of doing some of the public address at Fowler Field during some of their playoff games. So I was up close and personal with some of his accomplishments. So that's tough to lose to graduation, a player of that caliber in Arbogast. So Burke is Burke. They're always going to have a lot of talented young players, and they do a good job from a coaching perspective. So for that classification, Burke's always going to be near or at the top.
Yeah, agree. Who else we got, Ed?
All right, that's it for last week.
That's it. Well,
Can I mention one other one that was of interesting note for me from last week? You know, there were a couple games because we had Marlborough in the first week. They beat Highland 10-3. Little surprise of the score.
It was 3-0 all the way up to the last second. They won that on that really shocked me. You know, the Black and Blue Bowl has been a blowout probably the last 3 or 4 seasons. So that really is. Marlborough doesn't want that. You don't want Port Jervis seeing that. You don't
want a 10-3 score.
You do not want Port Jervis. Port Jervis beat Highland. That was the last game on the original Brunette last season, 72-3. So you do not want Port Jervis looking at you go, okay, 10-3. All right, that's all right, cool.
I don't know if they took them for granted or not, but got to give props to Beacon. Beacon goes to 2-0 with a win over New Paltz, 19-8. New Paltz goes to 1-1, and then the other one that was a little interesting, Pine Bush. Not only beat Lourdes, it sounds like it's a down season for the Warriors up at Our Lady of Lourdes, but Pine Bush winning 33-0. I'm a little surprised by the score, but keep an eye out on the Bushmen because they got Plexico Brooks, who's still around. It feels for some reason like he's played for like 10 years.
Some players just have that effect. I agree.
In your minds, right?
I agree. You're like who? You're like he's what? Still
I'm
there?
like, he's still there.
It's like college. You got that COVID ability.
Next year,
give him props. He had 7 carries, 126 yards, and 3 touchdowns against Lourdes. Had another couple of catches with 56 yards. So he had 4 touchdowns in that ball game. And Tristan Santos almost pitched a perfect game. 6 of 7, 133 yards in the air. And, typical Pine Bush, they rushed the ball well as well. So they got 126 yards from Brooks. They got 63 yards from Luke Broadbelt and 53 yards on the ground from Ryan Russell. So the Bushmen are running the football, a big impressive win from a scoring standpoint. They go to 1-0 to start the year. They led that game 27-0 at the half. So just keep an eye on them as well.
Yeah, speaking on and even going back to Pine Bush, I'm excited to see them the rest of the season. We talked about them earlier, you know what I mean, in the first podcast also. You know what I mean? We talked about Newberg, Monroe, Middletown. We'll see where they stand after this week. And who knows? Maybe Pine Bush and Middletown would be a game unexpectedly. But going back to Beacon starting off the season 2-0. I want to see how real they are this season as well. They seem to have a nice little team over there. The guys are excited. They're 2-0 to start the year. Confidence is through the roof. So I want to see exactly what Beacon has to offer.
I wanted to mention them because you mentioned them in week 0 about the possibilities of keeping an eye out on them. And then the last one I'll mention is Valley Central, because we mentioned that they go up into the division this year with Monroe, Middletown, Kingston, Pine Bush, and Newberg. And they opened up the year with a 30-6 win over Washingtonville. Their running back, Julian Montreville, 21 carries, 205 yards on the ground with a couple of touchdowns. And Jaden Orozco, the quarterback, had 11 carries, 92 yards with a touchdown as well. And in the air, he had 4 passes for 85 yards. But a big ground game for Valley Central against Washingtonville. So they start off the year on the plus side 1-0. And they're going to need to win those games.
Yeah.
And they got to meet the big boys down the road.
And they're heading into another one. They're heading against Wallkill this week into the helmet game. So I expected that win versus Washingtonville. If you guys remember, I told you I played Washingtonville last season, talked to the coach. They were senior heavy. So Washingtonville is reloading with a lot of young guys. So I expected that win from Valley Central. They got a few returners. Dover, shout out to Dover. They got their first 11-man win over Fallsburg. Obviously, it's not, didn't beat Newberg or anything like that, but it doesn't always have to be the case. That's a good win.
Right.
Those guys have been working hard, waiting to get that win, and they got it. So congratulations to them. And then Saugerties. I was
going to say that. I was going to ask you, what do you know about Saugerties? Because they go to 2-0.
Honestly, I just played Saugerties week 0. I picked against them last week. I thought FDR was going to get the win there at the Oval Office in a rivalry game. Saugerties, they got a few guys. Ezra Cafaldo. They got a lot. They're returning every linebacker. Will Fischetti. They got a big offensive line. The quarterback. What's the kid's name? He was a receiver last year. I can't really get
Gabe Osfeld.
Gabe Osfield, there he is. Yep, Gabe Osfield. He's doing a good job at quarterback for those guys. It was a 12-7 win, so that's a big win for Saugerties, a scary loss for FDR. Maybe it's something I can wake FDR up, but they're back in Class A this year, and I can tell you from being in Class A last season, you're gonna see a lot of scarier teams in the coming week. So whatever went wrong last week, they're gonna figure it out. I'm sure.
Somebody in the comment section promising us an FDR bounce
back week.
All right, sounds good. Who does FDR have this week? I don't
know what they're. Give me a second. Let me see what I can find here real quick. FDR. Red Hook.
Okay. Yeah, Red Hook's 0-2. They've been shut out.
Definitely see a bounce back.
Yeah, I can as well. What comes after, we'll see.
All right. Listen, we're on the Pine Bush kick. Let's pick that. Let's go with that game this week. Pine Bush and Minisink.
All right. So Pine Bush and Minisink. Pine Bush, I'll go first here. Pine Bush, great game last week. Taking down Lords, 33-0. After what I saw from Minisink against Newberg, I am going to pick Minisink to beat Pine Bush. Pine Bush wins this one this week, and we have a conversation. We'll be talking about Pine Bush a lot more. So I'm going to go with Minisink, and I'm going to see if Pine Bush can upset Minisink.
We, the first 2 weeks this year, we've been pretty much running the same. So I'm going to go off the cuff this week. I'm going to pick, since I just said he's been here for 100 years, it feels like, I'm going to pick Mr. Plexico Brooks and the Bushmen with their ground game and see if they can run it up on Minisink. Where's that game? Anybody?
So that one is going to be...
I have it here, too.
That one's going to be in Minisink.
That's in Minisink. Okay.
So Pine Bush going to have to go on the road. Minisink's tough place to play. It's
100%, as Newberg found out early on this week. So I'm going to stick with the Bushmen.
No, they were home. Newberg were home.
Oh, Newberg was home. Okay.
Yeah, Newberg. That's what I told Ed before we got on air. I was at the hospital in St. Luke's, and then I see Minisink's about to upset. I'm like, you guys are going to make me walk down there, aren't you? But, yeah, so Newberg was home last week. They'll be home.
I'm going to go with Pine Bush, and to me, that would be an upset.
Oh, yeah.
Because of where Minisink and Pine Bush have been at over the last couple of years. The Warriors have done a nice job. But I'm going to ride that Bushman parade right now and see what happens this week against Minisink.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with Isaac, and I'm gonna take Minisink. I don't know if Newberg had an off game or if Minisink was just that good the first half to hold them to whatever points they had. I'm gonna take Minisink.
I'm gonna go with him.
All right, Valley Central Wallkill.
I just played against Wallkill Saturday. Didn't get a chance to actually coach that game since my son came. Valley Central beat Washingtonville 30-6. Wallkill's 2-0. They haven't played the best competition in the first 2 weeks. They have two routes. They beat Poughkeepsie, I believe. What was that? 34.
Yeah, it was the route.
And then they just beat Monticello 35-2. So Wallkill, if VC is better than what we think, this will be the first competitive week that Wallkill's had. But if they're not, I think Wallkill is going to continue. So as far as my pick, until VC proves otherwise, I'm going to go with Wallkill to win the helmet game this week.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go with the home team. This is their opening. I think Wallkill started on the road both times?
Yeah, 2 games on the road. Went to Monticello and went to Poughkeepsie.
And it's a nice atmosphere in Wallkill.
It's beautiful.
Friday. Are they playing Friday? Yep, they play Friday night. So it's a nice atmosphere over there. The place will be jumping. I think I'm going to go with Wallkill too, in a close one, but I'm going to go with Wallkill.
Yeah, I agree with you with Wallkill. Let's see. I wonder who Isaac's going to take, or who Ed's going to take.
I know where we're going.
Port Jervis and Middletown.
Oh, we're gonna go.
You want me to just put your names next
Why
to
don't we,
them?
why don't we save that one for the last game?
Yeah,
Why don't
let's
we
save that last. I'm
save
afraid.
that one for the last
All right,
one.
we'll do that one last.
Let's go.
Goshen and Warwick.
Spirit Trophy.
Yeah, Spirit Trophy game. It always sucks too. This season, like I said, I'm gonna miss the Bell game. I got to coach up in Monticello against Liberty in the Red, White, and Blue game. But the Spirit Trophy, Section 9, the schedule maker has been doing this thing where he puts all the rivalry games in the same week. And I'm a guy who, like I said, once I moved from New York City, I moved to Port Jervis, New York, played in the Bell game myself. So that's just something I can never miss. But this year, I actually plan on taking a look at the Spirit Trophy because I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it's older than the Irie Bell game rivalry. Fact check me.
It's older. It's older by age, but not the number of games. The number of games.
So old. Okay.
Yeah,
So
Middletown in the number of games is one. I might be top 5 in the country in the number of games because Port and Middletown on occasion played twice in a given year.
Well, nevertheless, Goshen coming off the loss to Port Jervis, win against Kingston, a good win against Kingston. Same thing we said about the middle game applies here. About the Irie Bell game applies here at Spirit Trophy. Both teams could be 0-10. These things do not. What happened weeks before, the same thing I told my guys this week, you know what I mean, heading into Liberty, it's a rivalry game. What happened weeks before, no one really asks about, no one really cares about. It's the one benefit of having a big rivalry game on your schedule. No matter how the game, the week, Middletown this week, I'd be surprised if at practice today, Coach Shren and Coach Conklin and anybody else on the staff was really focusing on what just happened against Warwick. When you're coming in the rivalry week, we're talking about Port Jervis from the moment the sun comes up on Saturday. With that being said, I'm going to go with Warwick coming off the win against Middletown. I think Warwick's going to go. Are they going to Goshen? Give me 1 second.
It's in Warwick, I believe.
Okay, yep. Warwick at home again. Warwick's going to assert their dominance. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that as well. I don't really see it. I see Warwick doing exactly what they did last Friday night. They're gonna have a game and it's gonna be a good one. And I think Warwick's trying to make a statement and come through the door this year.
Yeah, I can't. Goshen holds the trophy, by the way.
Yes, Goshen holds the trophy.
Goshen holds the trophy. They won in the down year. They won it last year.
Yes, and Warwick was playing better. They came in winning, and Goshen came in losing, and Goshen flipped the script last year. That was a big win.
Yeah, and they'll have some confidence coming in after the win this week. But that being said, I think Warwick, that was a statement game against Middletown. I think, and the defense is going to be an issue, I think, for the Gladiators against that Warwick passing attack. The Gladiators will score probably. I'm pretty confident they'll put up some scores, probably in the 20s. But that Warwick offense, proved a point this past week, and I think that's a weakness for the Gladiators. They did give up 3 touchdowns against Kingston. They gave up a lot more than that against Port Jervis. So from a defensive standpoint, the Gladiators are going to have their hands full this weekend. Against Warwick, and given the rivalry aspect of it as well. So I think Warwick is going to win this one.
Yeah. If Goshen has the trophy, they'll need to bring it with them. Because I kind of think Warwick's going to take it.
Do you really have to go that far?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Listen,
there's got to be that one
Just
guy.
remember,
Be that one guy.
Just remember, Gladiator Nation, when you get upset, all right? It's not Ed Estrada who made that comment. It's Ed Diller that made that comment.
But listen, guys, anytime you get, Sandy, anytime you get upset, you guys, the power, we just use words. The power is in you guys' hand. Anytime you get upset, same thing I tell guys on KLT all the time. If you hate the rankings, well, change them. Okay? Because I don't keep them the same. I don't show favorites. If you don't like the rankings, well, then you go change it, okay? And you got the power. Power's in your hand. You don't like who we pick, well, then you go beat them. That's
the good thing is on all of these, when you're talking about these 2 rivalry games, or 3, if you took at VC, Wallkill, Middletown, Port, and Goshen and Warwick, all of them think they can win the game. Deservedly so. they all can still win these games.
Yes.
So just because I'm saying
Listen,
something, or
these are
Isaac or Ed are saying something,
this
doesn't
is
mean we don't think they can't win that game. I absolutely think
this is high
Goshen
school
can pull
football.
off a win, and Middletown and Port can win, and Waukegan, all of them can win those games because that's how those rivalry games are every single year.
Absolutely. And the other thing is, this is high school football. Any team can beat any team on any given day. This isn't. I mean, you look at the NFL. You know, how many upsets are in the NFL all the time?
Mhm.
You know, this is high school, which is a hell of a lot lower level than
College
NFL football, college football.
nearly every week.
You know,
Just as Notre Dame.
yeah, exactly. There you go.
Yep.
All right. Who we got next? Cornwall, Newberg.
I'm gonna roll with Cornwall. Good game up Monroe-Woodbury. They're gonna be fired up. They're gonna be fired up on Friday night, and they're also gonna be even more fired up because their rivalry team, which is Minisink, went up there and had a 14-7 lead. It's not saying that they got to do the same thing. But Cornwall, again, they're young. And Monroe-Woodbury, I think, proved that to me. I think, like I said, I told Ed before we got on there, I might have jumped the gun throwing the Dragons at number 2 in the section. I believe they got a lot to figure out after watching the game against Monroe-Woodbury. And until they figure those things out, I'm going to go with Newberg to win that game at home. I think Newberg, you go into the locker room 14-7 against Minisink. You score 19 unanswered in the second half. Believe it or not, for good teams that's probably going to go far later on, they need things like that to happen early on. Newberg went to the locker room and realized now they know we can't not play with anybody because then nobody goes down 14-7 on purpose, but we don't have time to figure things out. You know what I mean? We're not invincible. Same way if we got to figure it out, teams are going to come in here and beat us. And I don't think that last time Cornwall went to Minisink, that's exactly what they did back in the Derek Marrero era. They played a great game. But I'm going to go with Newberg to defend the home crowd, defend the hometown. But I would not be shocked by a Cornwall win.
Yeah, I gotta go with the Goldbacks. Just a lot of seems to, from, and I haven't seen them up close and personal, but from the first 2 weekends, they seem to have a lot of firepower and have been consistent with it. But I think what I'm impressed mostly by Newberg so far in these opening 2 weeks has been their defense. And, Monroe was able to defensively impose its will on Cornwall this past week. And, it's going to be interesting. So the Dragons have their backs to the wall. But, the other thing here, too, is typically when you have a Class AA, especially, the big powerhouse AA teams like a Monroe and like a Newberg or like a Middletown,
Right.
and you have, even though they are the class in Class A in Cornwall, the AA teams don't treat Cornwall when they come into their place like an A team. They don't mentally. The teams know that the Dragons can win against them, so it's not like it's not like they come in and they're going to surprise somebody. They are, just like Monroe did this past week, and just like I expect Newberg to do this week, they are preparing as if they were playing another AA team. Yeah. And so there's no aspect of a surprise there. They know the Dragons. They know how they play from a defensive and an offensive scheme. And so I think that part of it out of the equation, you go on pure talent. And though Cornwall is a very talented team in spots, in positions, the all-round talented team is Newberg.
Right.
From a depth perspective and from the skill positions, I just think they're going to win on Friday night. It's Friday night, I think.
Friday night, yep.
At Newberg. So I think the Goldbacks take it.
This is going to be a great environment.
I'm going to disagree with the both of you.
Good.
I think Cornwall.
All right, here we go.
Beats Newberg. I think Cornwall was pissed off at what happened last week. And Newberg coming out to that slow start, if they do that against Cornwall, with Cornwall having the attitude of
good point
we talked about in previous weeks, we're expected to win every week. Their team, their coaches, their fans, and even everybody associated with that team has the expectations of we are going to win this week.
Yeah.
Nobody's happy they lost last week.
Yeah.
Cornwall not happy they lost last week. Newberg came out to a very slow start against Minisink.
Yeah.
They do that against Cornwall, and that's what I'm taking my pick on. If Newberg comes out slow against Cornwall, Cornwall beats them.
And I don't disagree with you, Ed. And that's why I did. So that's why I went to that point about the mentality of how these teams think when Cornwall comes into their place now.
Right.
I would think
right.
that they're not going to take Cornwall lightly. Especially, and I think that 14-0 score against Minisink, maybe that scared Newberg straight, because then they went on to score 26 straight points. So with that in their head, you're absolutely right. If they get off to a 14-0 start against Cornwall, it's going to be a different story than the Minisink game.
Right.
I believe so.
And the issue, like we always talk about, the issue with Newberg, why it's so hard to beat Newberg. One, I just see in the comment that they always stay fresh. They have so many guys, which is true. And B, it's the defense. You know what I mean? Minisink had more scoring opportunities in that first half to put them away, which Cornwall probably would do. But even when they're coming off to a slow start, the most you can get is a one touchdown lead, 14-7 at the half. Like, you know what I mean? For a slow start, the most separation you can get is one touchdown. And one touchdown to Newberg is like no touchdowns at all. So it's good that we got a disagreement there, because I wouldn't be shocked. That's going to be a fun game to watch on Friday.
Yeah, that should be a good one. All right.
Here we go.
Have at it.
We're going first the whole day, so I'll leave you.
First off, before we even get into that, we are going to be streaming that game on 845 Sports Nation YouTube channel. So
in simulcast with Midi TV.
There you go. With Midi TV. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that part of it. That's kind of my thing. I mean, this is all fun and dandy, but the streaming part is the part I enjoy. All right, Port Jervis, Middletown. Ed?
So Isaac made had a good question in case those folks out in Red Raider Nation are trying to figure out, why are we playing an afternoon game on a Saturday? Middletown's having its Hall of Fame induction ceremony. They call it Wall of Fame in Middletown that morning at 10 o'clock, and they're going to be honoring the inductees at the Port game at 1 o'clock. So trying to vibe everything together. We'll also have it's going to be a sad, it's a happy occasion, always the Irie Bell games. It's a sad one for Middletown this year. We lost head coach Dick Woolslayer in Middletown a couple of months ago. This will be the first Irie Bell since the 1960s that will be played without Dick Woolslayer. And so we'll have obviously a moment of silence and some other things going on. We'll make an announcement about how we'll be honoring Dick Woolslayer in the future at Fowler Field. So that's going to happen during the pregame. So it's a lot of stuff going on as typical. It's also part of what's called the Great American Rivalry Series. As we mentioned, it's, I believe, top 5 as far as number of games played in the country between two teams. It's one of the oldest date-wise as well. Warwick and Goshen also up there for their Spirit Trophy game. It actually beats Middletown and Port as far as years are concerned. But a number of games, this one's one of the top. First game, Port Jervis 38, Middletown nothing, back in 1897 when they first played. Normally played on Thanksgiving. Because they're in 2 different classes nowadays, they're playing early on in the season. This will be Middletown's first home game. So a lot of layers to play here, to pull out here as far as what we think is going to happen here. My personal opinion, throw out the 0-2 start by Middletown, throw out the 2-0 start by Port Jervis. Totally different. The Red Raiders are going to come in with a chip on their shoulder because they have not had the bell over this past year for 2 years. And I want you to remember that, Isaac, 2 years. But 2 years ago, right? Goal line stands. to stop at Gwinnett, which I think the last game at Gwinnett, but the last Erie Bell game at the old Gwinnett, before we move over to the new one next year. So that one was close.
Probably
as
the best
typically
high school
they all are. One thing I do want to remind you, folks listening from Raider Nation and folks listening from Midi Nation, it is the 10th anniversary of what, Isaac?
What is it? Oh, is it the Middletown Miracle?
You got it.
It is.
2014. This year is the 10th anniversary of the Middletown Miracle, as it's referenced in Midiland, when Port Jervis had a 19-point lead with about 4 minutes left in the ball game, and Middletown came back on what some might still consider a questionable play, because it looked like it might have been 2 passes instead of a lateral and a pass. But nevertheless, the Midi Bears came away with a come from behind, so they'll be celebrating that one too. There. So listen, so Middletown, if the Midi Bears can avoid the mistakes they made in the secondary against Warwick, and this game is nip and tuck, then look out for Jelani Graham. That's going to be the ball game. If Port Jervis attacks that Middletown secondary and the Midi Bears have not improved from their play against Warwick last week, then this game could slip away from them, because then Jelani Graham doesn't become a factor. So I think you're going to see a different Middletown resolve this week. There's no way in heck I would ever pick against my Midi Bears, regardless of where they were in the standings, especially in an Erie Bell game, that I'll be calling on the live stream. But, you know, it's going to be an outstanding game. I think you may see I'm thinking you might see the second largest crowd ever at Fowler. The first largest crowd was the very first game ever played there. Again, in the first Erie Bell game, when we had about 6,000 people, there were 4,000 people fit the stands, and we had folks around the bowl on the side. And I think you might not get to that number, but I think you might have the second largest crowd, because Port Jervis smells it, right?
Yep.
They think that this is the year that they can bring the bell back over to the west side of the county. But I think Middletown wins a close one. So
I'll tell you what, Ed, I have not, in the 4 seasons that I've been, first thing first, Middletown's only had it for 1 year. That was an error. 1 year, last year.
Okay.
Before that, we won 33-19. That was my error.
Well, you're right. The year before Middletown won it, right?
That was my error. So secondly, I'll tell you what, this year will be the first year ever since I moved to Port Jervis, New York, that I won't get to see the Bell game. As you guys know, I coach in Monticello. We play Liberty on Saturday. But at about 3:15 p.m., when my game finishes, I'll be sprinting home to Port Jervis to see that bell come in the town. I'll tell you that now. I'll be here when that bus comes down the main road and the bell's coming behind it. I'll be at the high school with those guys as they ring it for the whole entire time to hear.
I hope we have some Middletown athletes listening to you.
I am going to go. In the 4 seasons that I've been KLT, I don't only pick Port Jervis. I've picked Middletown. I've never picked the Bell game wrong. And hopefully, I'm 4-0 now. Hopefully, I'm 5-0 at the end of this week. And again, I don't give Port Jervis anything. My little brother plays for the team. If I didn't believe they would win it this season, I'd be saying Middletown right now. But I'll tell you what, I wholeheartedly believe in my heart on Saturday that Bell's coming west on I-84. Port Jervis, like you said, they smell it. They're hungry. And they're gonna go get it. Port Jervis, again, when we talk about teams like Newberg and Cornwall, right? Port Jervis believes that little old Class B school, formerly Class A, believes they're better than everybody. Every single week, they believe they're better than everybody. They don't care about class size. We don't care about age. We don't care about these things. These guys, they're ready to play. Jelani Graham, great player in Middletown, and big guy. But Carol Goshen, he better be ready to catch him. The only thing that worries me about Port Jervis is the secondary versus Goshen. They gave up a little bit more than they wanted to. But again, I know the D coordinator over there. I played in that system, and just like we said, it doesn't matter what comes before. Middletown and Port Jervis is going to be riled up this week. If I had to guess, I do believe that it may go how 2022 went, down to the 2022, I believe, maybe a year before that, but right down to the wire. But I do believe Port Jervis comes out the other end. I think Port Jervis is going to get after it early. The offense seems to be moving fluently, and I know they had Goshen, I know they had Liberty, but I'm going to go with Port Jervis this year. That's
the other thing is both Middletown losses were on the road against two really good teams.
Yes.
They played a Baldwinsville team out of Section 3 that plays against CNS and last year's state champion in CBA Syracuse. And they held their own against them, right? It was 14-7 when their quarterback went down and didn't play in the second half. So that was a surprise that they adjusted to. And they were driving to tie the football game late in that game
before
the Jelani Graham fumble.
Listen,
so I think the Warwick thing is going to be a little bit of an aberration. Who knows? They might have been looking past the Wildcats a little bit to that Erie Bell game. So
I sat behind at the Goshen game. I sat in front of a lot of Middletown players, and they seem, based on how it was going, they seem to be overlooking Port Jervis as well. And they can't do that. I'll tell you that now.
You mean Port Jervis or Warwick?
Middletown.
Okay.
I was at the Goshen game. Middletown came after practice, I believe, and they sat right behind me. And you know, kids do what kids do. Oh, those guys suck. Oh, if you let him do that to you, you suck. Oh, those guys. Oh, this Port Jervis. Oh, Port Jervis. They're going to pay for that. If
you think Middletown came away from that game after Port Jervis scored 61 points, thinking that they weren't any good, then you're right. But I don't see it. I think there'll be it's going to be interesting early on, the will of both lines.
Yes.
The offensive line for Middletown against Port Jervis's defensive line. Who sets the tone on the ground for Graham? Because if Graham is able to run a little bit, all right, that opens up the passing game. And against Baldwinsville, you know, they had a couple of wide receivers, Middletown, in the short passing game that was effective.
Right.
They just lost the quarterback in the second half, and so Anthony Russo didn't have an opportunity to really showcase himself now that he has moving forward. So we'll see, but it's
all right.
This is a possibility that it can go either way, but
yeah, and my pick,
colored in blue.
My pick.
Come on, Ed. You know what to say, Ed. I mean, Ed, you know who you want to pick. You know you
gotta understand. You got listen, man. You got to understand. I do a lot of work at Middletown. I can't not pick them and show up.
Trust me, if I can make the bad game this year, they would. Man, I'd hear it. I'm gonna hear it. I mean, you hear it. Listen, Middletown win that game.
I think you're gonna see Middletown come out very emotional with all the activities and festivities that are going on. Their fallen coach. You know, the whole Wall of Honor, the whole 9 yards, and their first home game after starting off 0-2.
Yes.
I think you're going to see a hyped-up Middletown. I think you're going to see an emotional Middletown, and I think Middletown wins it in a close one.
Oh, we're going 2-1 here against Isaac.
Yeah,
but here's the question here. Is JoJo playing quarterback? We don't know officially, but that's a big wild card here.
I think last week that was the wild card. I don't think it's the wild card anymore because
we know. So
who I'm sure coach already knows who's going to play in that ball game, and whoever it is, if it's JoJo, it's JoJo, and if not, you know that Anthony Russo's now had 3 weeks with practice going against that team. The quarterback position had nothing to do with 3 passes over 60 yards against your defense. In the secondary.
But on the other hand, your offense had a lot to do with 6 points.
Agreed.
Yeah, but what I'm saying though is you have 6 points. Why? because you could not play your offensive game because you were already down 21-0, just like that.
Well, we've
If
seen
the game is 14-7, or the game is 21. If the game's 7-0 or 10-0 or 14-7, Jelani Graham's still part of that offensive strategy.
And that's what
21-0, you can't run the football anymore.
And that's what I'm worried about here. I'm worried. That's why I'm going Port Jervis. It's obviously, aside from being a hometown, love Port Jervis, thinking they're gonna. I believe Port Jervis is getting off to a fast start. I don't believe Port Jervis is going to have any figure it out time. I believe, again, they don't have the bell. It's an extra chip on their shoulder, and the offense is just moving. I mean, they're moving better than I ever seen before. It's like I told you guys week before the first podcast, we have the formula. The offensive line is moving. Carol Doshin, Anthony Theodore, Elijah Campbell's making his name on the perimeter. They got more perimeter guys. Dylan Fox, system quarterback. He does exactly what you need him to do, what you ask him to do. And that offensive line, Mookie Campbell up there, a lot of kids up there who just move. They just move. And they
picking Middletown. Everybody knows here that in the first 2 weeks I've said it. I did the Middletown broadcast on War Radio at Baldwinsville with Tom Flagione from Port Jervis, and he can vouch for me. I picked Port Jervis not only to win the section, they're going to win a state playoff game this year. In my estimation, they're that good. But like I said earlier, when it comes to these rivalry games, all three of them that we've talked about tonight, anybody can win. Any of those games, without a doubt.
All right. Upcoming streams that we got. Obviously, September 21st, the Erie Bell game, Middletown and Port Jervis. These are all Middletown games, actually. October 10th against Newberg, and then November 1st against Monroe. All those games will be streamed on 845 Sports Nation and MIDI TV. Ed. Anything else you guys have? Or
outside of the games that we picked, Kingston Beacon. Kingston coming off the loss against Goshen. Beacon being 2-0, but a lot of people aren't invested yet in Beacon because the two wins, you got one in Newport who's not doing so well, and then the other was against Red Hook, who's also not doing so well. Beacon comes out and they get a win over Kingston on opening night back in Dietz for the first time.
That's the point. That's the key point there.
If
the Tigers haven't played technically a home game for what, 2 years?
Yes. Yeah. So if Beacon can do that, emotion. If Beacon can do that, I'll be shocked and I'll be looking at him with both eyes open. Right now, I'm here, one eye, 2-0. I'll have both eyes open. Secondly, Saugerties and Marlboro. Again, I did not think Saugerties was beating FDR, and I definitely didn't think Marlboro was beating Highland by a touchdown. So I want to see how that game plays out. Not that it matters significantly in the Class B race, but still a game to watch for. Other than that, I'm just excited for another, week 2 of Section 9 football, which so much have already happened in just 2 weeks, week 0 and week 1. I'm ready for the Bell game. I'm really ready for the Bell game. It sucks that I won't be able to see it with my own 2 eyes this season, but you guys are going to do a great job. I'll be calling plays with my phone in my pocket, watching the live stream. So, and like I said, at 3:15, I'll be driving 65 miles, maybe 70 miles. I'm a dad now. I got to slow down.
Got to slow down a little bit.
I'll be going 70 miles per hour, down 42 to get the point.
It's gonna be so sad when there's absolutely no traffic on 84 and everything's going eastbound, not westbound.
Well, listen. Hey, my little brother knows if he don't come home with the bell, well, he might as well go eastbound. He's not either. So go Raiders, go Midi Bears, go Gladiators. Shout out, go Wildcats. All the rivalry games. Enjoy these moments, kids, because they don't last forever. In fact,
and have fun with it.
And just have fun.
One thing I will say, as hard as those rivalry games are, and I can speak personally because I've been to just about all of them in my lifetime on the Erie Bell games, there is nothing but respect between both Port Jervis and Middletown. Even the players, they root for each other when they're not playing against each other. But as hard as both those teams, and that Erie Bell, that's a badge of honor game that you live with for the entire year. And no matter which way it plays out, they shake hands at the end of the game. I with my broadcast competitors, with Kevin Halpenny and Tom Fagione over on the Warwick Port Jervis broadcasting side, we have a lot of fun with it, but we're always respectful, and our players, our fans are always typically respectful of one another, and those are huge crowds, both whether it's at
And you know what? Listen, you got to have respect. I mean, it's sports, and at the end of the day, it's just a game.
Yep.
You know, there's nothing to this more than a winner or a loser at the end of the game, and that's it. There's no reason.
We do games. You know, there's a off week there that we might want to talk about, maybe off air on the 27th. There's a big game going on that week.
All right, we'll work on something like that after you know we stop the stream here. Is there anything else?
That's all. Good luck this week, guys. That's all I got. Rankings come out tomorrow. Okay, tomorrow. New set of rankings.
Looking forward. Take care of Xavier.
All right, one more time. I got to show it.
3rd down and 16 for Goshen. Back to pass. McKenna looking downfield. Lewis with a catch. Lewis at the 10. Lewis inside the 5.
Yeah, I thought it was an NFL game, Ed. Really got me going there.
Every once in a while in a blue moon.
Yeah, I can't wait for the Bell game. Ed.
When there's 50-plus points scored in a game, I'm going to get one of them right.
Yep. Indeed.
All right, guys. Thanks a lot. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. We'll see you next week.